So in the past, there was a highly advanced civilization that today we know, or they tell us that was called Great Tartaria. Tartaria, Tartar area. Anyway, Tartaria is the name that we know of today. The civilization was disappeared from our history books less than a century ago. In the beginning of the 1900s, you could still see books and stuff about Tartaria. Unfortunately, the first printed books of the interbellic period between the First and the Second World War, it's how we know of history today. And but the vestiges in the reality of the real world are still everywhere. The vestiges of Tartaria. So the civilization dominated technologies more advanced than the present technologies that we have today. Just to give you some examples, the geopolymer concrete, which is the material that the big buildings are made of. The geopolymer concrete, which is called, was eternal, and it grows stronger over time. And we can still see this geopolymer concrete in many buildings in the world. Of course, many of the buildings were destroyed, and many of them are underneath lots of layers of earth, mudflood. Now, the structures of this empire had iron and glass structures. Also associated to the structures was always mercury, which is the liquid metal, mercury. They distributed free atmospheric energy to everyone. Now, we can call this energy atmospheric, we can call it electromagnetic, we can call it electricity, or we can even call it the Holy Spirit, if you want. Or, of course, the best word is the ether, right? Anyway, its towers, and the stations, even the railway stations, and of course the buildings with domes and everything, are still some of them in operation. Sometimes we don't even know they are in operation. Unfortunately, the technology of free energy, which has to do with free electricity. Remember, Vibes of Cosmos explains very well about how the world works. Free energy from the ether, which until the 1920s, until between the period of the First and Second World War, speaking about the ether was perfectly fine and normal, and it was scientific, and scientists knew about it. And when Albert Einstein came around, and all the other people, they just banned all the knowledge about the ether. The knowledge about the ether was destroyed and imprisoned, and old technology was reintroduced. The old technology, which is the technology based on cables and wires, which is very inferior to the technology which is based on wireless. So the old technology of cables and wires was reintroduced to distribute energy and make handsome profits. So the most important thing for the bankers and for the people who established after the reset in the 1800s, and in the 1900s, because the big majority of the system of energy we have today was established in the late 1800s and early 1900s. The things with the metered technology, with meter, so everything has to be by cable and wire, so that they can meter it and they can charge money on it, right? So that's the reason why. And this is like literally until the early 1900s, there was places in the world where they were still using free energy. Of course, all the people are dead now because of passage of time. But yeah, and this is the reason why they wanted this older technology, because that way you can control and you can ask for money in exchange of electricity. So we need technology in order to have this. Now, back in the past, in the days of the empire, you could travel by boat, car, or plane, or zeppelin, or even maybe they even have like electric flying vehicles like the UFOs. You can travel for free by simply accessing nature's electric magnetic grid, which is present all the time, what they call the ether. That is omnipresent, and we have not been allowed to use this free energy due to the new system that was put in place, the financial system, which came around in the 1800s again. This is the story about how President Abraham Lincoln fought against the system, and President Kennedy fought against the system, and other presidents. So this new system that came in place is the system of money and usury and debt slavery and fractional interest. and domination, and this is in the last 100 and something years, 150 years, between 100 and 150 years, and we have been denied the benevolent system of free energy, ether, atmospheric, electromagnetic, or call it even the Holy Spirit if you want. Now, the history books that we and our grandparents had to study from the beginning of the 1900s, they changed everything, and they called the ancient architecture with several words. I'm just going to give you examples. So in the books, in order to give explanations of why all of a sudden in the whole world they have the same buildings everywhere, they said, oh, it's Moorish revival, or Moresque and Islamic. Also, they gave the words for colonial, medieval, neoclassical, Baroque, Romanesque, Gothic, Beaux-Arts, which means Belle Arts, eclectic, Tudor, Renaissance, Palladian, Richardsonian, Romanesque, Chicago School, or Victorian. These are just some of the names that they put in the history books to describe the old world buildings. And they labeled them as fashionable styles, as if like the people in the old days were just build these for fashion purposes, and that's it. To hide the old and true function and nature of the structure of the buildings, the columns, the arched openings, the pinnacles, the rose windows, the iron columns, the towers, the domes, and of course the presence of gold and copper and iron and mercury, which is the liquid, the metal, etc. In addition to having cut the ends of the pinnacles and the upper portions of many of the buildings in the photographs, and in some cases they just added crosses that were not there in the first place, because even the crosses back in the day were different than the cross we know of today. Now, as you know, many of the buildings were power stations. Power stations in the sense of using electricity. There were so many power stations all across the world, small and large. That's why we still have pictures of very huge power stations and very small power stations, which were then relabeled as cathedrals and churches and other public type buildings. All of these power stations had pipe organs. The pipe organs, obviously not much to explain. They're to harmonize and heal the population to sound waves. That's why vibration is very important, and the frequency of vibration heal to sound waves, what is today known as cymatics. And the hertz and the functionality of the vibration is very important, because that's what our DNA perceives. That's why everything had pipe organs. The churches and cathedrals, how we call them today, we see throughout the world, that have this ancient old world structure. They all share similar design patterns that were designed. The design of the actual building itself is with sacred acoustic geometry. For what purpose? To maximize vibration of the frequency of vibration, the tone and resonance, in order for the cymatics and the waves to heal and to help the humans, the people, the population. They speak about downloading higher consciousnesses from the ether, which is the Holy Spirit, right? And now I guess you understand a bit more about the past of our humanity. And then everything went to you know about the reset of the World War in the 1800s. We don't know if some of these people of the ancient Tartaria, the old Tartaria, they just went away. They went to a different continent. There's so much things we still don't know. But then, of course, what happened from the 1800s is that they told us that all these buildings are religious, like the cathedrals and the churches, and that these are the amazing structures that afterward they called, or they said, oh, they're Presbyterian or Catholic or Anglican or Mormon synagogues or mosques or temples, etc. Doesn't matter the name. They just said, oh, it's for religious purposes. And that's pretty much the whole thing. So let me know if you like to speak more about this. Give me likes. I actually would like to speak more about other topics, like the German UFOs and stuff. But I mean, this is also an interesting topic. I mean, there's so many interesting topics. Seeing if you like it with a thumbs up, that gives me the motivation to keep on going.